Welcome to the Teach on Purpose webinar put on by Teach as a Future Black Teacher initiative. We are thrilled to have our panelists in the room, as well as over 100 of you here live, and an additional 500 plus people who will be watching this as a recording. I'm going to put up our PowerPoint for the day, and we are going to dive into what I hope will be a really inspirational session today. Our agenda today is going to be some opening remarks from myself. You have an opportunity to meet these four incredible educators who are trailblazers in their own right. You have the opportunity to engage in a really dynamic Q&A. So definitely get those creative juices flowing in terms of your questions for them. You'll also have the opportunity to leave this session with a purpose statement in hand. So if this is not work that you've done before, you have not had the opportunity to do that in our work of creating a purpose statement, to defining what your purpose is, I'm going to walk you through a process and a framework that will help you leave this session with a purpose statement in hand. And finally, we'll close out and we'll do a survey at the end. Before we move on, I'd be remiss to go any further in this session without acknowledging the horrific, continuous acts that keep happening in this country, specifically with Tyre Nichols most recently. As a Black man, as a newly Black father of a Black son, having 4 Black brothers, this especially hit me especially hard. I know it has hit many of us hard in different ways for different reasons. But I just want to acknowledge the gravity of that situation. I understand that this session, this webinar, is in the midst of this horrific circumstance. So I would invite you all to join me in a brief moment of silence, reflection, or prayer, whichever you are comfortable doing, just to acknowledge this moment. Thank you so much. In this webinar is aimed to inspire you, many of you Black prospective teachers, to go into the classroom. That act of becoming an educator and becoming a teacher is compounded by situations like what just happened with Tyre Nichols. We need more Black teachers to support our students, to show them that we love them, to show them that every human has value, that every human should be cared for, despite our interactions with them, despite their skin color. So it's very important that we do this work and we frame this work, we open our mind to this work in that image. We're not just teachers, we're not just educators, we're life changers, we're difference makers. So I invite you to take what you're passionate about today, to make a change and start making a difference in the lives of students across the country, wherever your region, wherever you're located right now. This profession, teaching, has the opportunity, the distinct opportunity, I'd note, to allow you to make a difference and be the change, especially in light of situations that have been happening recently. Besides that, very, very important reason, our data indicates, and research that's universal shows, that there's no in-school factor more important to how much a student learns than the quality of their teacher. Additionally, having Black teachers benefits all children, especially Black students. When we think about things like negative discipline rates, we think about things like graduation and college attainment, secondary degree attainment. There are tangible benefits that show having a Black teacher dramatically improves both the academic, social, economic, and academic futures of their students. However, despite those positive statistics, despite that need that's so ever present, we have a diversity gap in the teaching profession. Our nation's children, at most recent estimate, are 15% Black across the country. Yet the teaching force is just 7% Black. When we divide that and think about Black males, we're talking about 2%. So I didn't challenge you, I didn't invite you to turn your passion into a career that matters, thinking about those statistics, thinking about the change that you can make. regardless of whatever you're interested in, whether that's social economics, social emotional needs, whether that's about political climate, whether that's about music, art, dance, sports, you can turn that passion into a career that impacts hundreds and thousands of students over the course of a career in education throughout your work. And today you're going to hear from 4 great panelists, 2 of which are Teacher of the Year recipients, and 2 are former teachers, former principals, and former school leaders and coaches who have immense experience and amazing stories that they're going to share with you today. So our panelists today are Deon Jameson, the reigning 2023 South Carolina Teacher of the Year. We have Precious Simonette from my hometown of Miami, who's a 2016 Teacher of the Year. We have Jabali Sawicki, who is a founding conference director, former teacher, former school founder, as well as a bunch of other things as well, who specialize in purpose work. We have Judy Townsend, who's also a former teacher, former principal, former leadership coach, and current Harvard doctoral student, and is doing some other incredible work as well. These blurbs under the names do not at all do justice to who these incredible panelists are. So in a moment, I'm going to invite each and every one of them to take 2 to 3 minutes to just share a little bit about themselves, share why they do this work, and why it's important that you should consider it too. As they proceed throughout this session, throughout their introductions, think through questions that you might have for them, because shortly after this, we'll engage in about a 20 to 30 minute Q&A in which you can ask and engage with each of these panelists specifically, so that you can have your questions and your interest answered. So without further ado, I would love for Deon, then Precious, then Judy, and then Jabali to introduce yourselves.
Here we go. All right, so good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. I'm on the East Coast, so it's afternoon for me. So again, my name is Deon Jameson. I am currently serving as the 2023 South Carolina Teacher of the Year. Another, I guess, like high point of interest in terms of that particular recognition is that I am the first Black male to earn this honor in South Carolina. And while very exciting, there is also like this increased responsibility that I feel holding this particular position, so that I am able to recruit and retain additional Black men into the field. So that's a part of the reason why I'm here today. Why I got into education. So it's actually the unfiltered version here, right? When I was in the 4th grade, my teacher bought me a chalkboard, and I can like point out that that's the reason why I became a teacher, because I had that chalkboard and I was like, yeah, this is a pretty cool job. Like, I want to do this. I want to like put grades on papers and whatnot. But it was really me growing up in an area that is unfortunately known as the corridor of shame here in South Carolina. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with that term or unfamiliar with South Carolina geography, it's mainly the counties along the I-95 corridor, which happen to be Black, which happen to be impoverished. And so that term really denotes like low academic achievement and high poverty. And so I really wanted to be, this sounds very cliche, but I wanted to be the change that I wanted to see in the world, right? And so navigating that experience growing up in that particular area, I didn't necessarily know the negativity that came out of where I'm from until I went to college, and I was able to like really see in my face disparity. And so I became very passionate about social justice and equity, and really wanting to do something about that. And I didn't necessarily know what that job would be until I thought back and reflected back to that chalkboard that my teacher bought me when I was in the 4th grade. I was like, I can make positive change by becoming a teacher, because I know that education is one of those things that really helped me to get to the level that I'm at today. And so if I could do the same for others, especially those that look like me, why not join a field that is most noble and that is most rewarding, where I could be doing that? And so those are my reasons for entering education, and those are also the reasons as to why I remain. Teaching is a hard job, but it's the most rewarding profession that I think exists, and it is, I think, the only profession that I could see myself in.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I am Dr. Precious Simonette. So I have been teaching for about 17 years. I started in middle school, and then I went over to high school. I'm currently a proud creative writing teacher at Miami Norland Senior High School in Miami-Dade County Public Schools. I teach all different types of writing, which is so amazing, right? Introducing writing to students where they get to see the best of both worlds is really great. And I mean like academic writing, but also creative writing. So I absolutely love what I do. I'm also a teacher leader, not only in my building, but also in my district and throughout the state. Why did I join teaching? Because I was born to do it. I knew it since the age of 7. I was the little girl playing with her dolls and strategically placing them in my room, having my easel set up and doing lessons, right? And I absolutely positively love that. I remember when I first got my first set of keys for my first classroom, I did the happy dance forever. At that point, no one can tell me anything because I had literally walked into my purpose and fulfilled my dream of always becoming an educator. As I progressed throughout my teaching career, I believe in like the universe always sending you signs. I think God sends you signs to letting you know like you are where you're supposed to be. And many of my students or even my parents would tell me like, oh my gosh, like I've never seen this before. I've never seen a teacher do this before. Oh, what's advanced academic? So like I think representation for me was also a big one, which is why I stay in education. Many of my students are opportunity and access is there, but the lack of education that the lack of information that they get in a timely manner to seize all of those moments, it's not good enough for me, right? And I want to be that person, or at least one of those individuals, to help them to get the information that they need. So, yes.
Awesome. Good afternoon, everybody. First, just shout out to you, Dion and Dr. Precious, for earning the distinctions of Teacher of the Year. Like, that's not a small thing at all. So congratulations to you both on that. As Jarvis said, my name is Judy Tuzin. I am currently a doctoral student, spending my time working as a resident in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, with a small nonprofit called Metromorphosis, which is really focused on community transformation and what it takes to be able to partner with other stakeholders in the community to be able to work collectively to be the change that we seek, to borrow Dion's words. So in terms of my background, I started as a teacher in Harlem, New York. So if there's any New Yorkers or District 5 people on the line, whoop, whoop. And then became an elementary school principal in East New York, Brooklyn. And then from there, went on to become a leadership coach for a charter organization based in Texas. But when I think about like the through line in all of my experiences, it's always been driven by a desire to create affirming spaces for young people, and Black boys in particular, to learn and thrive. And sadly, some of that was shaped by witnessing spaces that were doing the exact opposite, and almost seemingly intentionally. In terms of how I ended up in education, it was not my dream. I wasn't playing with chalkboards and setting dolls up as a kid at all. It was actually in my freshman year of college. I was sitting in a sociology of education class. I had set out to be a pediatric cardiologist. I faint in hospital, so that probably wasn't the true story anyway, but sitting in that class, we were reading the works of like Jonathan Kozol, Amazing Grace, Savage Inequalities, all those things. And honestly, it was the first time that I had learned that everybody didn't have school experiences that looked like mine. Now, mind you, I grew up about an hour outside of the city. I'm a child of immigrants. My mom moved here from Haiti, gave up everything to come and search for the land of opportunity, food stamps, public housing, all the things. But I took a flute home in 4th grade. I went to Russia in 11th grade, started taking Spanish in 7th grade, and was sitting at NYU on scholarship. So in my mind, that's what school looked like for everybody, right? Didn't matter where your family came from, if you had money or not. And it was in that class reading those books that I realized that that wasn't true. That had I been maybe born in the South Bronx, I wouldn't be sitting in that classroom. And so that is honestly what compelled me to go into education. And then the experiences that I've had in the classroom as a principal, working with beautiful young people and their families, is what compels me to stay connected in some capacity. While I'm not in the schools anymore, and I tip my hat to anybody who's doing this work throughout the COVID season, God bless you guys. I'm still deeply committed to creating spaces within schools, within communities where young people, we believe in them, and then we equip them with the resources that they deserve to have access to become the people that they deserve to become.
Wow, that's a mic drop moment there. Peace and love to everybody who's joining. to all the panelists. It's an honor and a privilege to be in the space with your Black brilliance and your Black excellence. Folks that are joining, we can't as panelists see your faces, we could just see your names. Let me just share that seeing the number of you that made it here today gives me a renewed sense of optimism for the future. And for me, I teach, I've always become a teacher because I'm very interested in creating a different future. Just quickly, what I've done professionally was a middle school science teacher, founded the country's first single-sex, all-boys charter school, serving about 99% African-American males in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. I'm based in Brooklyn right now. I helped found Zern, which is an online math program, now serving, I think, 6 million students across the country. I've worked at a graduate school, and as Jarvis said earlier, right now, a lot of work I do is around helping educators, students, adults, youth identify their sense of purpose. And for me, teaching has really been an extension of my purpose. So if you travel back in time, like Judy, I didn't always want to be a teacher. I had no intention to become a teacher. I think in life there was a little bit of serendipity, but there was a through line. My dad left when I was 3, and my mom made a concerted effort to make sure I was exposed to influential role models. Now, when I was coming up, there was the original version of Wonder Years. The new, better Black version just came out recently. I always fancied myself as the main character, where I was very cognizant of the individuals that were influencing me in life. Where I was a knucklehead coming up, and those individuals happened to be my teachers. So there was a deep reverence and respect for their ability to inspire me, to challenge me, and to push me, and that always stayed with me. Now, over the course of my life, I grew up in the 80s, so I wanted to be a professional breakdancer. I wanted to be a basketball player. I wanted to be a philosopher. I wanted to be a marine biologist. Teaching wasn't even a part of the mix until I had a chance to work for a program that I know Jarvis knows called Summer Bridge or Breakthrough Collaborative. Once I stepped into the classroom and I was able to interact with students, there was absolutely no going back. And for me, the latter part of today's conversation, you're going to be crafting a purpose statement. Purpose is really about meaning. I found that teaching has been the greatest source of meaning for me personally. And as I look forward, I think about our children. We need to have a deep respect and a reverence for them because they are the ones that are going to create a world that solves all the problems that our generations have created. So I love this work. There's no rewarding work greater than this. Look forward to sharing more about how y'all could join us in this work going forward.
Awesome. Thank you, Jabali, Judy, Dion, and Dr. Precious. I appreciate hearing that. I know our participants also appreciate hearing your really compelling introductions. At this point, so all our folks on the call, we have an opportunity to engage with these great educators in a Q&A. So I know a few of you have ventured over to the actual Q&A function and have posed some questions. I really appreciate those. Keep those coming. A couple of housekeeping notes for those questions. If you have a specific question about how to get certified or just support in becoming an actual teacher, I will be going over some specific resources that Teach has to help you become a certified teacher at the end of the session. This Q&A specifically with these 4 panelists while we have them is really learning more about them, learning more about the actual career, their experiences. So feel free to ask those questions. But if you do have questions specific to your circumstance and how to get certified specifically, more of a technical question, I will be addressing those questions at the end by reviewing some of Teach's awesome resources. And so for now, feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A. I will be going through as many as I can with the goal in mind of having a really fruitful conversation. So feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A for the next 25 minutes. To start, I will get us started. And this is a question I'd love for each of you to answer. You all have clearly made teaching a purpose and a priority for you. Why stay? So why do you stay in the classroom? In any particular order is fine. So why do you choose to stay in the classroom after all these years?
Well, I guess I'll start. I truly believe with all of my heart that teaching is a revolutionary act. I believe that when you are teaching students with high expectations and you are being vulnerable with them and you are loving on them and being honest and helping them to learn about themselves, I think it is truly, truly revolutionary. I have seen my students walk into my room absolutely hating writing or hating going to school, hating themselves for that matter. But man, when they have a different experience with, and I don't even want to say like the right teacher, because I don't think I'm the only amazing teacher in the world, but I love what I do. And I think that's very contagious. That changes the trajectory of a student's life. And many people just look at the student that's in front of them. But I think many people miss the understanding that you are impacting generations to come. And I think it's very important that we are people who are in the teaching field, that we are adamant and that remains in the forefront of our minds, because we are educating and we are helping to change the trajectory of many students' lives, and we are creating generational impacts. I teach every single day because I absolutely love what I do. Like, it's just that simple. Many people say, you know, I wanted to make the world a better place. I do. And I am every day, right? I think that another reason why I stay into teaching is because I feel as if I am definitely a part of the solution and not the problem. In our world, unfortunately, there isn't enough of empathy. There isn't enough of people being vulnerable. And when I mean vulnerable, I don't mean like walking into a space and just telling everybody your business. I mean being able to make a mistake and then apologize to a kid because you made that mistake. Because not only is it our responsibility to teach our babies academics, but we have to teach them to have great character too, right? They could walk across the stage and graduate, but if they don't know who they are as an individual, we have failed them. And so I expect my students to dig deep and to dig deep often so that they can learn who they are. So yes.
Come on, Dion. The rule is, if you win Teacher of the Year, you guys have to speak first.
So actually, I saw that yours was unmuted, so I was like, is he going to speak? I was like, oh, okay, so I'll just jump on, right? So one, I don't want to follow up that amazing answer because it's like, but it all goes back to like this saying, right, that we all heard, if not me, then who, or if not you, then who, right? And so I feel it's a calling and a responsibility for me to teach and to continue to teach, especially with the climate that we're currently in. I think about the impact that one can make in whatever profession it is, right? And I often joke about, like, you may not remember your boss, you may not remember like your doctor, but the one person that you will always remember like throughout your lifetime are your teachers. And so that's one of the reasons as to why I came into this field and why I continue to stay. Just hearing like the stories that students and their families tell about you long after you're not even that child's teacher anymore is really cool, and is one of those things that bring me a lot of joy in the profession. Yes, I love my content. I think that content is important, but I think the most important, the most foundational thing that teachers do is they build those strong relationships with their students and with their families and the communities as well. And in building those relationships, you form a sense of responsibility in terms of like the advocacy work that goes into teaching, right? So like teaching is not just going into the classroom and teaching that lesson. There's so much more that goes beyond that, and the work is very impactful and is purpose driven. I've heard that word so many times throughout the webinar already, purpose. And so it's this purpose driven work in terms of advocating for communities, especially communities that look like me. I'm very intentional in teaching in schools that are under resourced and under what's the word I'm trying to even say right now? English teacher. You would think that I would have all the greatest vocabulary, right? But I make it a point to teach in schools in which the demographics reflect my own personal identity. And so that advocacy work that goes into teaching and leading a classroom and leading in a school is very important and very impactful.
I'll jump in, Judy, because I don't want to follow you. why do I continue teaching? I think there's two reasons. One is more selfish, and the others are a bit selfless. Right? So the selfish reasons are because it's fun, because it's challenging, because it's rewarding, because every day I step into a classroom, I have an immediate impact that I can see, feel, hear, it's tangible, right? Because I'm inspiring others in the same way that I inspire, and that is the best possible way that I can think about spending my time. So there's definitely things that I take from it. The other is this more altruistic, selfless sense of why I continue to teach, because it is truly about others, right? It's about the next generation. It's about equipping individuals with the skills that they need to navigate and be successful in life. I care about those things just as much as I care about my own joy. I care about my people, okay? I care about our collective struggle. I care about the legacy of all those educators and individuals that came before me. And I stress both the selfish and the selfless acts because there's very few professions in my experience where you actually get both of those every single day, where those things are intertwined and connected and they're inseparable. And to me, that's the magic space I want to be in, where I love the work that I do and I am convinced that it has a meaning beyond my sense of self. And that's what I do. When I taught science, I told people I teach about 10% science, 90% how to live lives. Okay, and I think all of us have a desire to love, to care, to nurture our brothers and our sisters. That's what teaching is about. That's in all of us. And the trick is just finding the things about the profession that you actually love. And again, that marriage leads to magic. If we all closed our eyes right now, two things would happen. One, my guess is all of us, as we look back on our own experience, could identify at least one teacher that inspired us profoundly. So that's in us, okay? Or some of us may have never had that experience, and that is also a possibility for us to be that person with the realization that all it takes sometimes is a Precious, is a Judy, is a Dion to put us on a whole new trajectory in life.
And I was going to say, all that is right. Everything that they've shared. I have not been in the classroom on a daily basis for several years at this point. But when I think about like the beauty of teaching, right? Like teaching is not just relegated to a classroom, right? And the way that you can powerfully impact and touch the lives of young people, families, and educators. I stay connected to schools and teaching and educators through my work as a leadership coach. I've been supporting a couple of schools across the country. And the reason that I think that that's so important, I struggled as a principal. My happiest place was the classroom, truth be told, right? A lot of times you're there and they're like, well, if you want to touch more students, become a principal, right? Because then you can be impacting an entire community. And while there's a lot of truth to that, you also need to develop the skill set. And so through a lot of the journey, through a lot of the learning, I was able to do some of that growth and development. And so to Jabali's point of wanting to help people have the skills to do the transformational work that they set out to do, I'm very committed to making sure that people who have a heartbeat for this work also have the skill set to undergird them as they try to do this really hard and important work. And so that's why I stay so deeply connected to schools, to young people, to educators who are out here really trying to make a difference. Passion can die in the seat, and none of you deserve that. None of us deserve that. So staying connected and making sure that people have the capacity to do this really hard work.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. And one more question for all four of you. I see the questions in the Q&A. We'll get through probably all of them actually. So stay tuned for your question to be answered. I'm just going to kind of go down the list and try to sort them as they are most related to each other. And so one question for all four of you, again, we can go the reverse order this time. So we'll go Judy, Jabali, Dion, then Precious. What do you find most challenging and yet most rewarding specifically of being a Black educator? So what's most challenging and also what's most rewarding specifically about being a Black teacher?
Awesome. So I think I think the rewarding is, and I think Precious might have said this, right? This idea of representation, knowing that I can be in a space where young people get to see somebody who looks like them, who has maybe had some of the same lived experiences that they've had, and then loves on them, believes in their brilliance, affirms them, exposes them to things they might not have been exposed to, and then seeing their eyes light up with a sense of possibility and wonder. I think whether I was a teacher or principal, those were probably the most rewarding things. Being able to be in communities, especially where the message that they get, whether day to day or on the media or in the news, is that they're not worthy and they're not deserving, to be in a space where I can daily challenge and push back against that narrative, and then try to cultivate a space that is rich with belief and opportunity. I'd say were probably some of the most rewarding things as a Black educator. And then I'd say some of the most challenging is laboring in spaces that just seem so neglected sometimes, right? That like, I can believe with all my heart and soul, but the world doesn't, because if they did, maybe the investments would be represented there. And so I think it's trying to figure out sometimes how to make $1 out of 15 cents, and then not somehow limiting your sense of possibility or your vision, right? Retrofitting the vision to the resources that are available in the space, but figuring out how to actually continue to work towards the vision for your young people, your students, the families, the community, in spite of some of the barriers that might exist. I'd say have been some of the most challenging.
Yeah, love that. And to build on that, I think this idea and concept of representation, for me, the most rewarding is the ability to center my authentic identity as a Black male teacher and have that be the source of the most powerful connections to students in their process of centering their own Blackness in spaces that aren't often celebrating Blackness. And so that ability, the magic that happens, that can only happen within that context, is incredibly rewarding. It's empowering for both of us on both ends. The challenging, and this is real talk, the profession historically for the past 50, 60, 70 years has been a white profession, okay? And there are challenges that come from us trying to navigate predominantly white institutions. And finding schools, finding leaders, finding spaces that truly value what we bring to the work can be challenging, okay? And in those spaces, finding our own sense of power, being able to utilize our voices when not everybody understands what happens when a student is in a classroom with somebody who looks like them, okay? And when the spaces aren't designed, navigating all of that is challenging, but it's something that I think all of us must agree to tackle because it is so critical. Right, the formative years as students are developing their identities, we got to keep fighting. To use Dr. Precious's revolutionary work, is we have to take our claim in what we believe is best for our children. That's an uphill battle. It's getting better as the world continues to morph, but that's been challenging and will probably always continue to be challenging, just given the power dynamics that still exist in schools.
For me, I think the most challenging moment that I've encountered in this profession has been being recognized for, or lack thereof, not being recognized for the genius that I can bring into my classroom. Going into a school space as a Black male, originally when I first started teaching, I was viewed as like the disciplinarian, right? So then teachers that couldn't necessarily effectively manage their classrooms and their students would send their misbehaving students to my class, right? And so I wasn't really being called on for like the one that could come up with these really cool lessons or whatnot, which I think that I do much better than the behavioral aspect. But that in turn turns into like the greatest like reward, right? Which is forming relationships with all kinds of students that I probably would have never taught had I not been who I am, right, identity wise, because I've had so many kids that will like come to my class because they were the quote unquote behavior issue. And a lot of the times, most if not all, there's nothing wrong with these kids. Like they're absolutely fine. They're just a little bit different in terms of like the cultural aspects that they bring to the classroom, and sharing that identity with those students. I was able to really understand that. Siri is about to start talking and I don't need that going on while I'm Okay, there we go. So yeah, just really like forming those relationships with those students that are that's viewed as like those problematic students, where they're really not a problem, right? It's just like the cultural differences that I understand as a Black male, that I understand that other Black male students have, because I too had those same things growing up. And so that concludes my answer, because I was about to go on a tangent. Listen, English teachers will talk all day long if you let them.
So I think one of the most rewarding things for me as a teacher, and it's like I tell this to people all the time, like every single day I am happy to be a teacher. Not all day, every day, because you have outside things that bother you, but every single day I am happy to be an educator, because I get to witness my love bugs literally come into their own. It is something different when you witness a student learn their voice and then use that voice to do something about it. It's so beautiful to witness, and I get to see that every single day, whether it's through the written word or through the spoken word. So like I teach my students spoken word and slam, and even the different types of writing, it's just beautiful to see, and I get to do that, witness that every single day. One of the challenges, and this is kind of sort of twofold. So being a teacher of the year for Miami-Dade, then becoming a finalist on the state level, and then winning a national award, I didn't even realize certain things even existed, right? It's like, oh my gosh, like people really do pay attention to like the work that, teachers are doing. And I think many people have the iceberg effect. Like they see all of the glitz and glamour that happens with teachers of the year, but what they don't see is the hard work beneath that. You are getting an award, but guess what? You're getting another job, because you realize that there's responsibility there, and you have a choice. Are you going to be the person that lives for the title, or are you going to make the title, right? Being teacher of the year is not just, oh, I'm teacher of the year, look at me. Teacher of the year means I got work to do, because there are people who selected me to be a spokesperson for them. It's great on that end. But another thing that really irks my soul is the fact that I have to be in places or in spaces where I'm invited, but I'm not welcome, right? Simply because I am Black. And that's something that I see a lot. But at the same token, every single day I'm telling my students, you need to use your voice. You need to be the best version that you are. And it gets very difficult. So I have to dig deep and serve as an example for my students, because if they see me giving up, they're going to give up. And that's just not fair, right? So that's the challenging part. And also people not seeing teachers as teacher leaders or leaders, period. Oh, that person is just a teacher. What the freak does that mean? I'm a teacher. And then what, right? And I just think that those are two challenges that I kind of sort of face every single day. But everything that I experience in my classroom with my babies on a regular basis, when I'm in my classroom or with my students in the community, nothing else matters.
Awesome. Thank you for those yet again beautiful, inspirational answers. Now I'll probably ask one person some of these questions, answer these questions, but panelists, if you feel inspired to tag on, feel free to do so. So this is a question for our former principals, Judy and Jabali. What specific steps can an HR department take to recruit potential teacher candidates of color for your districts?
I'm happy to start. I think that sometimes in human resources, the tendency is to operate as if they're interested, they will come, right? They will come to us. And so I think more can be done to ensure that like folks within that department or division within the district are actually making themselves very visible and present, and partnering with local colleges, community colleges, even high schools, to be able to ensure that they have the message and the partnerships already in place so that young people are learning about the profession, getting their questions answered about what it might take to start the profession, opening themselves up, whether it's several schools or select schools in a district to host young people, right? Internships, visits for days, right? So that it's something that can be demystified, right? So the access, the presence, but also helping people to see and taste a little bit of what the profession actually looks, sounds, and feels like, as opposed to just relegating it to those who are interested will find us and make their way to us. And I think there's also something to be said for the caliber of person that you're looking for, right? Like if you want to make sure you're recruiting more educators of color and you're recruiting people from diverse backgrounds, that level of intentionality should also inform the strategy that's being used to actually get out there and recruit people to the field and to the work.
Yeah, I love it. And just to quickly add on to it, commit to doing that if you really want to do it, and put the resources behind it to ensure that you get the results. The second thing might seem counterproductive, retain those that you have and understand exactly what their experience is like in your school or in your district, and identify the ways that you can make the spaces that you manage more conducive to their success and their excellence. And that will, I think, attract others, and it will serve those that you have.
Awesome. And a quick question, not a quick question, a very great question for Dion and Precious, as y'all are in the classroom with students every day. How do you encourage students who have been dismissed, who have been labeled, who have been discouraged from, of achieving in school based because of other educators or the system in general? So how do you encourage and use your platform as Black educators to connect with, to build up, to repair in a lot of ways Black students who have been dismissed and discouraged in previous stops along the way before they got to you?
I can go ahead and start. So I actually have a quick story that I'll share. So my first year teaching, I had this new student that was introduced to myself and his classmates. His name is Sweet Pea. Sweet Pea is not sweet at all. He does not live up to his nickname. And so he was the student that no teacher would want on their roster, right? And he had all of the labels that you had mentioned, Jarvis. And Sweet Pea, to keep it short, Sweet Pea made me work for every cent of my check, day in and day out. And there were so many times where I was just gonna call my principal and be like, I'm not even coming to that school tomorrow, just forget about it, because I can't deal with that kid. But it really takes intentionality, right? Just being very intentional about the space that you create for your classroom, and for that you create for your students within that classroom. And it sounds so cliche and it sounds very vague, but it's like building that trust with the student, right? And that's forming those relationships. So I would speak to Sweet Pea every day as most positive as I possibly could, even though he would be working my nerve. But asking him, hey, how are you doing? And then like really finding out what his interests are, right? And then once he opens up and he lets me in, right, I'm able to take those same interests and like incorporate that in my curriculum so that he can see himself in my classroom and what I'm teaching, so that he sees that like, hey, this teacher really takes like an interest in me, right? And so I would be lying to you if I said that Sweet Pea and I, we had this great relationship by the end of the school year. That was definitely not the case. I think that this kid just had it out for me. But what's really funny, and I guess like the sweet part of this story, right, is toward the end of that first year of my teaching career, my principal knocks on my door at the end of the year, and she was like, you've done such a great job with your kids. We're going to loop you up. And for those of you who don't know what loop you up means, that just means to go to the next grade level with your kids. So at first I'm thinking, I get to fix all these mistakes that I made with my kids my first year teaching. And then it dawned on me as I was driving home that Sweet Pea will be in my class again. And so I say all that to say, once we did loop up to the 8th grade, and it was the next school year, Sweet Pea and I, we had an amazing relationship, so much to the point that he got suspended for fighting another student because another student was talking about me. Now, I don't condone violence, but I think that speaks volumes, right? Those relationships and that intentionality behind building relationships with kids and ensuring that they feel seen, they feel valued, and they feel respected in the classroom.
Awesome. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you all so much for those responses as well. This is sorry, Precious, you good.
No, I'm sorry.
No, go for it.
I just wanted to tell Dion, so you have a Sweet Pea, I have a sweetness. and she was amazing. It's like, okay, so like as a teacher, like when I was younger, I was like, oh my God, like I want to have like a tribe of kids. Like I want to have a whole bunch of kids. I went to 2 births and that was it. But I think I was blessed anyway because I have like all of my students. But she was just a beautiful spirit. But to answer your question, I would say vulnerability, right? And once again, I don't mean like telling kids like all of your business. I mean telling students like, I empathize with you. I know exactly how you may feel. This is something that happened to me, and allowing them to have like a safe space, right? I think at the end of the day, most students want to be heard. And they say it all the time. Nobody listens to me, nobody understands. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, you have no idea. But allowing them that space to vent and express how they are feeling, I think that does wonders. But once again, being in this state of being vulnerable, like letting them know, okay, I made a mistake. I was once there. This is what I learned. Perhaps you could use this for you. And just having like a really safe space for them. I am a walking diary, most of my kids call me.
That's a very dramatic pause. I love that. Cliffhanger.
It's okay. What I will say is Precious does an incredible job of having her students write and reflect on their lives every day. And there's been some really, really emotional and really great, moving pieces. Watch her TED Talk. Go YouTube her. It's a gem. All right. Oh, Precious, you're back. Precious, did you want to finish your answer? Okay, perfect.
I was actually done.
Oh, perfect. There's a mic drop.
Thank you. Yeah.
Of course. Here's a really great question. We have like 9 minutes left with you all. A few quick questions I want to really hit on. If we don't get to your questions specifically, again, I'm going to talk through the resource that Teach has in terms of how to get certified, how to connect for some questions about student teaching. We'll talk through all that later after our panelists leave, but I want to make sure I get to a couple questions before our panelists depart today. Great question we have in terms of folks who are trying to balance their purpose versus their actual like lived experiences in their schools. So the question specifically is, what experience have you had navigating spaces that fundamentally do not align with your purpose or personal why? Jabal, I know you've done a lot of work with purpose. You talked about hundreds and hundreds of people around purpose. So I'd love you to address this question of what advice you would give someone for navigating a space that fundamentally does not align with their purpose or their personal why. Are you muted, Jabali?
At the deepest level, I mean, that's a great question. I think we'll all encounter that at some point in life. If I'm speaking from the heart, I would suggest that you find somewhere else to work. You find a different space. Our gifts, what we have to offer, are too precious, and we need to find a way for us to be able to express those. And I think it can be corrosive to the soul. It can be corrosive to the spirit when everything you do is a fight against something that is antithetical to what you believe in and what you don't want to do with your life. So that's my general, there's places out there where you will be valued, where you will be appreciated. And as Dion said, that's what all of us want. That's what all of us deserve, okay? If you're required to navigate, I think what's most important is you continue to surround yourself with community. Find your people in the space. If it's one person, if it's 2 people, whatever it is, because that just bolsters your strength. It bolsters your belief in what you stand for. And community could be outside of school, but that becomes your ballast. It becomes what supports you, so you don't lose your identity and what you stand for. So that's general. The work is hard. Go somewhere where you're going to be valued. Build a community that can offer some counterforce, some countervalence to what you're dealing with.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Next question we have is for Judy. A very lighthearted question, I think, but it's on its face, but it's such a deep question in itself. So for you, Judy, talk about some great experience you had traveling when you're at school, getting a flute. Has there been a teacher specifically who has impacted you Who's that teacher and how they impacted you?
And so I've actually had to answer this question before. And it wasn't just one teacher, right? Like, you know how often you could say one. I think it's the testament to the district that I was blessed to go through. So from kindergarten to 12th grade, if you didn't move, you stayed in the district. And year after year, everybody, the message was the same. You're brilliant, you're capable. My first grade teacher asked me if I wanted to go to the Blue Jays reading group because it was all boys and she didn't know if I felt I could handle it, right? From first grade all the way through. And so I think more than just an individual teacher, it was the consistency of the messaging, right? That I was brilliant, that I was capable, that I actually belonged in school spaces, right? I call myself like a perpetual student, but it's only because I was so affirmed in my abilities as an individual that I often say, I don't know if I'm really smart, y'all, but they told me enough that I was. And so I walk in that. And so that is probably the message that I would say more than anything, right? Like the teacher is in probably the most powerful, apart from families, right? Parents and all that stuff. Most powerful position to help affirm a sense of self in the young people that get to walk through your doors every day.
Awesome. A question for you, Dion. What advice would you give your first year self? So if you had to go back to being a first year teacher, what advice would you give someone who is a first year teacher? What do you wish you knew?
Oh my gosh. That is okay not to have it all together. I tried to go into my first year teaching like a veteran, and that just wasn't possible. And so it was okay for me to take the time out to figure out like my teaching style, to figure out how I wanted my systems and procedures to run, to figure out how I would build relationship with my students, which is most important and most key. That's the thing that'll save you your first year, is prioritizing those relationships with students and with their families. So the content will come, but those relationships are crucial. And that's what I would tell any first year teacher.
Perfect. And Precious, this is a very, I think, nuanced question, but I think it's important, especially given the landscape that we're in. So we have a participant who doesn't work with students, a lot of students of color, right? And they're wondering, how do they bring cultural awareness to the school? Because there's a need for it. Another participant asked about how they can incorporate Black History Month, especially in the current landscape. So how can you bring cultural awareness into your school? And the nuanced part is without making people feel uncomfortable, is the question. So I want to make sure, get the whole question right. So how do you bring cultural awareness to the school if needed? And how do you personally navigate the need for people to feel comfortable, or do you describe that completely?
So one thing that I am a stickler for is when students come to my room, I learn their names. And if I mispronounce their names, I make it my business to learn how to properly pronounce their names. I think there's a lot that comes in a kid's name. And when you mispronounce it or you act as if it doesn't matter, you are indirectly sending them a message that it doesn't matter. It's not important enough for me to learn your name. I also think that as educators, sometimes we could be so focused on having the perfect lesson and the perfect classroom and everything, when in actuality, your best resource is staring you right in the face. Ask your kids. Have a conversation with them and listen to what they have to say, and understand that when they're speaking, it's not always about you, right? Kids walk with invisible suitcases every single day. And many times it has nothing to do with you. So if you want to know different ways of how to bring culture in your classroom, I will say turn your classroom into a courageous conversation. What would you guys like to see in class? How do you feel welcome in the class? So don't be afraid to ask your love bugs those uncomfortable questions, because in the midst of you asking those questions, you are doing a multitude of things. One, you are letting your students know that you see them, not just parts of them, but all of them, and that you are welcoming their voice. And also, you are letting them know that this is not your classroom, it's our classroom. because when we're in the classroom together, there's a relationship that happens. And so we also send kids a lot of mixed messaging, right? Don't say this, don't do this, but this is your classroom. I'm confused, right? But having those conversations with students and allowing them to come in with all of themselves, I think is very important. Now, I think it's human nature for people to be uncomfortable with things that they don't know, things that they may fear. And I think that if that were to happen, I think just being there and being able to like walk through that, like talk through that discomfort, is okay. And being okay with leaning into that discomfort. Because once again, you're indirectly showing students that you are willing to learn. And I think students come to school and they teach us a lot of different things too. They teach us so many things, but I think we have like tunnel vision most of the time. We miss a lot of those lessons. So, yes.
Awesome, thank you. And while for the last minute that we have you all, I would love each of you in a sentence, if possible, just to answer this question of why we need more Black teachers in our classrooms. So in a sentence or two, why do we need more Black teachers in our classroom? And we'll go in any particular order.
We need more Black teachers in classrooms because students need to know that representation matters, that people see them, and that they deserve to be in all different spaces throughout the world, regardless of what that looks like.
Retweet and thinking about your statistic that you put up earlier, Jarvis, so that Black students see themselves.
And
We need, go Judy, go.
I was just gonna, again, retweet all of that, and so that the field can be strengthened, right? It's missing more of our brilliance, our perspective, our experiences that can help further shape what the experiences look like for all our students, not just Black students, but there's a whole lot of non-Black kids who need to see brilliant Black educators too.
Don't think I've ever said the word retreat in a Zoom panel. Retweet all of that. We need more Black teachers because everybody needs to be exposed to our brilliance and our excellence, particularly in the formidable years when they're developing their sense of identity and their understanding of their existence in the world.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, our panelists. Participants, we're not done yet. We have a few more powerful minutes left, but we're going to thank and show gratitude to our panelists for their amazing contributions to today and to the field of education. I think over 100 of us today are better off than we were 45 minutes ago because of each and every one of your comments today. So thank you all so much. And now, participants, we're going to do some work that each of these great folks have done over the course of their careers. They have really strong senses of purpose, which is why they're on this panel, which is why they've been successful. I'm going to walk you through a process which was borrowed from NXU Education, organization that Jabali and myself know very well, that is going to help you develop a purpose statement that you can take with you. This statement is not one that you will be completely firm or finalized. It's something that changes every year. For me, it changes every couple of weeks. And so with that in mind, I want to engage you in a quick 7 to 8 minute process in which we will come up with a brief purpose statement that you can use to help inform your decision to become a teacher and to thrive in classrooms as we proceed. And so if you haven't already, I want to we'll take the next 1 minute to grab a piece of paper and something to write with, a writing utensil, so that we can, you'll want to be able to jot down everything that we're going to be talking about shortly. It doesn't need to be a terribly big piece of paper. So take the next 1 minute to gather a writing utensil and something to write on. You can feel free to use your notes or something like that on your computer, just anything where you can capture a few words in a sentence, right? And so we're going to go in our process to develop an actual purpose statement. I'm going to walk you through step by step of some things that seem pretty simple, but when we put them together, you're going to leave with a really powerful, potentially revolutionary statement for you. The first thing they want to do is I want you to jot down 2 aspects of your identity that you are most connected to. You see some examples on the screen, whether your race, ethnicity, age, physical health, religion, location, occupation, gender, personality, nationality. Take about 1 minute to jot down 2 to 3 pieces of your identity that you are most connected to. Take another 30 seconds. And I'll note that the examples that you see on the screen are not all encompassing. And you want to identify the specific identity. So if I say race, I might say I'm Black or African American. As age, I might say my age, might put that I'm a father. So you want to specify the actual identity within the category that you chose. Take another 15 seconds or so to identify those 2 to 3 identities that you are most connected to. Wonderful. Our next step is to identify 2 to 3 core values that you feel most connected to. You may already have some, so feel free to jot those down. If you need to jog your imagination, there are some examples on the screen to your right as well. So you're identifying 2 to 3 core values that you feel most connected to. There's no right answer. This is not an all-encompassing list. So again, you want to make sure it's authentic to you. So 2 to 3 core values that you feel most connected to. We can take another 30 seconds. And I'll note that you probably want to, the ones that come to mind first are probably the most authentic to you. So those ones, those ideas that pop up right away, those words, those values that pop up right away, those are the ones to capture because those are at the heart and at the top of your mind and are most likely the most authentic to you. Now, I want you to identify 2 to 3 strengths that you think are your top strength or you find most valuable to you. Again, there's some examples here. If there's others, feel free to note those that are authentic to you. So 2 to 3 of your top strengths. These are things that you would identify as your top strengths, not necessarily things that you've been told. So what do you believe your top strengths are? Take another 30 seconds. All right. Now, I want you to think about 1 to 2 things you most enjoy. Once you identify that, perhaps you like to go running, perhaps you like to write, perhaps you like to read. Once you identify those 1 to 2 things that you enjoy doing the most, I want you to think about the why. Why do you enjoy reading? Does it relax you? Does it allow you to be reflective? Why do you like running? Do you like being adventurous? Do you like being outside? Do you like fresh air? Do you like to reflect and recharge your body? Do you like sports? Do you like sports because you like to compete? Do you like to work as a team? Think through the why behind what you enjoy and identify 1 to 2 reasons you enjoy your activities that you do. So again, identify the thing that you like to do, and then identify 1 to 2 whys behind those things. And again, a couple of examples. If you like to play sports, you might like to do that because you like to compete. So I would write competition. You might like to work as a team. I'd write working with a team or teamwork. For reading, I might like to reflect and to learn, might be the words that I use. There's some examples on the screen here. Take another 30 seconds to identify those roots of enjoyment. All right. And lastly, I want you to consider a problem in the world. There are many, and they all affect us in many different ways. You see some examples here. Write down an issue or a problem in the world that you feel most motivated to solve. There might be more than one, but for the purpose of today, I want you to identify one problem in the world that you are most motivated to solve. And these are just examples. There might be other more specific ones, perhaps in your area, in your community that you want to touch on. Feel free to be more specific and talk about ones that might be in your community specifically. And take about 30 seconds to do that. All right. What you've just done is you've identified aspects of your life, things that are important to you, that when combined, you have a purpose statement. And so on the screen now, you see a sentence stem. You are going to now take those elements that you wrote down, your identity, your values, what you're good at, your roots of enjoyment, and a problem in the world that you want to solve. Insert them in the aligned sentence stem, and you'll have a purpose statement. So take the next 2 minutes to jot down this sentence stem, replacing the purple aspects with the elements that you decided of your personality, your identity, your strength, your values that you identified previously. So take the next 2 minutes to fill in the blank, so to speak, and take a step back and review your purpose statement. So I'll give you 2 minutes to do that. Take another 35 seconds to fill in the sentence stem. All right, and I would challenge you at the end of this session, at the end of the webinar, on the way home, or when you later tonight before you go to bed, to stand in front of a mirror and read your purpose statement to yourself with confidence and pride, and see how it makes you feel. And I challenge you to feel the same you did today. I'd almost guarantee you that you will feel more impactful, more pride, and more challenged and more motivated than you ever had before if you read your statement with purpose, because you've identified the things that are most important to you. And what is typically done in over a course of weeks, you've done in a matter of 10 minutes. And this purpose statement will allow you to truly use your passion to make a difference in the world. And we'd hope that that passion will find you in the classroom shortly. And so now we've reached the culmination of our webinar today. I thank you all so much for your time, your attentiveness, your questions. Two things I'll ask you to do. And in a moment, I'll talk through some resources that Teach offers to you. But before we head out, and before I show you those resources, I'd love to take 2 minutes to do our survey so we can learn how we can be better. So you see the link at the top right. You could also use your phone to scan the barcode to take 2 minutes to do the survey. And so I'll give you a minute to pull that up, and then I will proceed to review those resources and send you all off to have a great afternoon. So again, scan the barcode, type in the survey link at the top. It'll take about 2 minutes. Just let us know how we did, how we can improve, what other topics you want to discuss, and we'll go from there. And again, right after this slide, we will talk to you specifically about what resources Teach can offer you and how to actually connect to those resources to help you get certified and help you figure out how to best find solutions to your situation. So that is coming right after this. And as you wrap up your survey, I also know my contact information is up there. So feel free to reach out to me via email as well. I will respond to you in a very timely fashion, any questions you do have. And as folks wrap up the survey, I'm just going to leave up this step here so you can see our social media and follow us. So you can learn how to log on to teach.org. It will take you to, depending on what region you are, it will take you to your regional page for personalized support and resources, including one-on-one career coaching. So if you are in North Carolina, South Carolina, Colorado, Connecticut, Houston, Dallas, Missouri, I'm sure I'm forgetting one more. We will have the opportunity to connect you to a one-on-one coach who can actually support you with your specific need. If you are not in one of those regions, we have resources for you on our national website. We can still give you certification guides and things of that nature. So we do have resources for you if you're on this call. So please, please, please make the time to log on to teach.org. If you join this webinar, you have an account, so now you need to go hop on over it, take a look at it, and make sure you get the resources and supports that you need. Again, we also have some upcoming Future Black Teachers event. This is not the last one. We'll have some other things down the pipeline. So please stay connected to our emails, some of our texting as well. And as you complete the survey, again, before you head out, make sure you snap a quick picture of some of our social media as well, so you can follow us on social media. And again, head to teach.org so that you can connect with a one-on-one coach and find other personalized resources and supports to help you. Our folks in the regions are current career teachers who want to help you. And so they're there for you. They're in the classroom every day. They have so many experiences supporting folks with certification, including their own experiences. So if you had a question about certification or how your next steps or how to get promoted in the career field, these coaches are for you. So take time to log on to teach.org. It will auto direct you to your regional page and find those resources for you. If you don't find what you need, email me and I will make sure that I connect you to someone who can help you if I can't help you myself. So again, head to teach.org to connect to personalized resources for you, especially our one-on-one coaches. We have finalists and scholarships that our coaches who are current teachers can connect you to, and they're waiting to help you out specifically. If, again, you can't find what you need, this is my email address on the left. Email me and I will help connect you to someone in our great organization who can help you specifically. With that, thank you for attending our webinar. I'll keep the survey up as well as my information up for another minute as you complete the survey. Thank you for your time. We're forever grateful that you are investing in yourself and potentially investing in education. I'm excited to see many of you in these classrooms and hopefully some days very soon be able to feature you on a panel like the one you participated in today. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I'll stay on for a few minutes with this survey link and my contact information in case you need to see it. Thank you. Have a great afternoon. And again, grateful for your attendance today.